story. I have kids. I have two. And I of course want to raise them right, instill in them strong moral values and a good work ethic and all that other crap. But what I really want and what I really mean about raising them right is that I want them to have good taste, you know, my taste in the important things in life, like movies and music and books, which is really hard in this day and age, because in this day and age, unlike in the day and age I grew up in, you can't force feed your kids your culture. Like in this day and age, kids are allowed to have opinions and thoughts. That wasn't the case when I was growing up. When I was growing up, it was whatever mom and dad wanted, and I couldn't object to it. It wasn't allowed. It was almost like my mom and dad had kids and then just went on with their life as if they didn't. Like the kids were not going to interfere with them at all. And, in some ways, that was a good thing, and in some ways that was a bad thing. I mean, it was a it was a bad thing, for example, because my mom loved horror movies. And we only had one TV. We had a ranch style house. We only had one TV. And so when my mom was watching a horror movie, my choice as a 6, 7, 8-year-old was to stay in the room with the TV and watch a horror movie, or not be in the room with the TV. Do you know any 8-year-old who's going to be like, no, I'm going to leave the room with the TV? No. So I got to see all of the Michael Myers and all of the Jasons and all of the Freddy Kruegers, all of the Nightmare on Elm Streets by the time I was like 9 years old, which might be why I've had horrible nightmares my entire life, because I had to watch horror films at a way too young and precious age. But the good thing was that, well, I watched and listened to and read stuff that I wouldn't have chosen for myself. I mean, my dad was a big fan of classic movies. So by the time I was 8 or 9 years old, I was a big fan of Frank Capra and Kurosawa and uh and and my mom and dad, they both had really eclectic taste in music. So again, by the time I was 8 years old, I was a fan of Rosemary Clooney and Harry Nilsson and John Prine. And I love that. I love that I know all of these different musicians, and I love that music was part of the traditions of our life. Movies and music were part of who I am, part of what made me as cool as I am. For example, every Christmas we watch The Bishop's Wife. It's a classic movie. It's wonderful, and I love that movie to this day. Never would have chosen that on my own, but started watching it from before I can remember. Or on Thanksgiving, every Thanksgiving, both my mom and my dad, even though they were divorced, they agreed on Thanksgiving, you listen to all 22 minutes of Alice's Restaurant Massacre. And I can to this day sing all of the words to that song. And then, they also agreed on their love of Broadway musicals, especially the Easter classic, Jesus Christ Superstar. My dad had the cassette, and we would listen to it in the car all the time. My mom had the VHS tape, and we watched the movie every Easter. She loved it because she thought Jesus was hot. I loved it because I thought the music was incredible. And so it was bad because I had nightmares and I was forced to watch some really inappropriate things, and I definitely learned a lot of bad words and about a lot of sex and drugs from the music choices that my parents had. But it was good too, because it exposed me to things I wouldn't have chosen for myself. But kids these days, they get to choose. They get to have thoughts. They get to have opinions about things. So when my kids were little, once they were old enough to understand lyrics and movies and that kind of thing, and I'd say, hey, let's watch this great movie. And they'd be like, it's in black and white. I don't want to watch that. I said, all right, fine, we won't watch it. And then it just kind of kept getting worse and worse as they got older. My kids are 11 and 9, and I just went down this slippery slope of never being able to force feed them my culture, my great taste in movies and music. I have not managed one single Thanksgiving to get them to sit through not even 2 minutes of Alice's Restaurant, let alone 22 minutes. And this Christmas, I was starting to feel like it's gone on too long. Like I'm not gonna let them get away with this anymore. No, I am the mother. They are gonna learn culture whether or not it kills me. So this Christmas, I said, listen, you're 11 years old now. It is time for you to experience the greatest Christmas movie of all time. And I put it in and I hit play. And within 3 minutes of the movie, my daughter was like, why do they keep shooting everyone with machine guns? And why are they blowing things up? I mean, she said that Die Hard was going to give her nightmares. What is wrong with this kid? But then I remembered the nightmares that I still have to this day. And I thought, okay, fine. I'll give her another year until she's ready. But, I felt a little bit like a failure. And so I continued to think about it and try to work through this situation until finally we come to Easter. And after a very long spring break, home with my darling children, it came to Friday night, our movie night in the house. And the kids were like, let's watch this movie. Let's watch that movie. And they're all just crap. It's just total crap. And I said, you know what? No, I've had to put up with you kids all spring break. I am going to watch a movie that I want to watch. And I put on Jesus Christ Superstar. And through the whole movie, they were crying and whining and bitch. They were like Christ on the cross. It was just the worst thing ever. But we got through the whole movie. And the next morning, while I was making breakfast, my son came downstairs and he came up to me and he said, Mom, what's the buzz? Tell me what's happened. What's the buzz? And I thought, yes, we might not be completely there yet, but there is hope for my kids to turn out right. And I, for one, cannot wait for this Thanksgiving. Thank you.